Hello everybody, I'm Alka Dhameja from the Faculty of Public Administration, School of Social Sciences. Along with me is my colleague, Professor Pradeep Sahani, and we are going to talk about leadership in public administration today. Now, leadership is a very important concern for an organization, for nation building, for socio-economic development, and for development of any kind, micro development, macro development. Everything is dependent on the leader. If the leader is good, then automatically results would show and organizations would prosper, nations would prosper, states would prosper. And now with the changing context, with the liberalization, privatization, globalization wave, more and more accent is being laid on leadership, because organizations now have to reinvent themselves, have to become more effective, more efficient, more accountable, more responsive, more citizen-oriented in the present context. So leadership becomes even more important issue in today's world. So we are going to talk about leaders, the qualities of leaders, the different theories of leadership, the different traits of a leader, and how leaders are made in the organizations. So, and leadership is so important in the sense that leaders can make and mar the course of history also. As you've seen, leaders like Hitler, Mussolini in the past have changed the entire course of history. In the present context also, the major leaders of the First World like George Bush, Tony Blair and all are writing the history of the world for the third world also. So leadership is very important, and we have to see the entire concept of leadership at a macro level and also the organizational level, because after all, macro level consists of these micro organizations. So we have to see the concept of leadership in a larger perspective, and we'll be discussing its various facets now. And I think we would start the discussion by first looking into the different types of a leader. What kind of a leader we need, and what kind of a leader is good for an organization. So I would just like to ask Professor Sahani, what is his opinion on the different types of leaders that are there in organizations.
Thank you very much, Alka, and good afternoon, viewers. In fact, this topic of leadership, if one looks at the BDP curriculum, one finds that it is over there mentioned at length. And also we have referred on to the leadership as a component, as an aspect, as a concept in the MA Public Administration program. Primarily when one looks at leadership, one finds that leadership is definitely a very broader concept, whether one looks at it from the micro perspective or one talks of it from the macro perspective. Like if one looks at as it was mentioned by Alka, that well, one refers to the political leaders, one talks of the economic leaders, one talks of the social leaders and so on. So from that perspective, the complexion becomes a little changed. But if we concentrated more from the student's point of view or from our course curriculum point of view, we shall be referring more on to the organizational leadership, that is leadership which is in existence in the public administrative organization, than more so at the micro level, or if one looks at it at the district level or state level and so on. Primarily when one talks of leadership, one finds that leadership is considered to be an image of action and power. Now these two words, that is action and power per se, these have both the positive connotations as well as the negative connotations. Action has to be there on the part of the leadership, it has to be initiated by the leader. But how much action the leader is to initiate? Can leader initiate the action on his part, or can he take up the action without having the involvement of the people? So from that end one finds that well, if it is being done all single-handedly by the leader or a group of leaders in the organization, then it is considered to be that well, it is an authoritarian kind of the leadership, or it is a totalitarian type of the leadership which is there into existence. So should it be more participative, should it be having the more involvement of the people and so on. And in a similar manner with regard to the concept of the power, how much power is to be exercised by the leader? Can the leader have the power all vested in him, or has the leader delegate the authority to the people down the lanes or to the channel down the organizations and so on. So from that angle one finds that leadership which is considered to be an image of action and power which in its own self has both the positivities as well as the negativities which are involved therein, and a thing becomes the positive as well as the negative depending upon the circumstances in which the thing is being put across, in which the depending upon the circumstances that what action is being taken upon by the leader. This we will be discussing during the course of discussion also, Alka, today, that depending upon the same connotation which is being taken up by a leader is considered to be an effective leader and the leader is considered to be an ineffective leader. So the depending variable, that becomes more important over there. Likewise, if one tries to understand and appreciate the leadership as a concept, one finds that the responsible leadership is a blend of commitment, understanding and determination. Leadership which is said to be the mirror of an organization, because what the organization is doing, how it is producing its, making the goals being achieved and the targets being accomplished, it depends upon the responsiveness of the leadership, it depends upon the commitment of the leader, it depends upon the determination of the leader, and based on these particular aspects of responsibility, commitment and determination, that how much leader is able to take the people working in the organization along with him, that is more important to be taken stock of. And further it is said that dynamic and effective leadership is required for the overall success of the organization, because one finds, as has been pointed out by my colleague Alka over here, that the leaders, they mar the organization, and it is the leaders only those who make the organization. So the organizations are being remembered by virtue of the work being done, are initiated by a set of the leaders at a given point of time, and then the comparisons are being made between the present and the past, or between the present time and what is going to happen in the times to come. So from that perspective, if one looks at, as students of public administration, one finds that there are two viewpoints which are available with us. One is the traditional viewpoint of the management, which had concentrated more on the four components, that is the planning, organizing, leadership, control or coordination. These four components are again to be taken up in an integrated manner, and one finds that all sort of the people which are working at the different levels in the organization, they get involved so far as the planning, organizing and so on and so forth in the organization is concerned. So the traditional management talks of the four elements or set of activities, that is planning, organizing, leadership or leading, and control or coordination. The present day scenario has changed a bit, and it has focused a little more on the skills of the leadership for being more effective at the time of performance of the goals in the organization, or paving the way for the organization to achieve whatever the organization has prefixed for itself to be achieved over a given period of time. So one finds that the leader in the present day scenario has to be more facilitative, has to be more encouragement oriented, has to be more participative, has to be more responsive, has to be more innovative. So there lies a kind of the blend between the traditional components and the contemporary scenario, which calls upon the leaders to take up a certain kind of action whereby the focus gets more onto the participation, onto the encouragement and so on. So having these two different perspectives before us, one should, as a student of public administration, should try to look at the role of the leader depending upon the programmed activities and on the non-programmed activities, because often in public administration we make a differentiation between leadership and supervision, and we find that there is a very thin line which is cutting across the two. But with regard to the overall importance of the functioning in an organization, one finds that more non-programmed activities are to be initiated at the level of the leader, and more programmed activities are to be taken up at the supervision level. Of course, that does not mean that there is no role of the leader so far as the non-programmed programmed activities are concerned. Yes, there is substantive role of the leader even in the programmed activities, because if the programmed activities get stalled, then definitely it will have a counter effect so far as the non-programmed activities are concerned. So from that perspective, when one talks of the non-programmed activities, I hope you appreciate and understand and are sensitized to that what are the programmed activities and what are the non-programmed activities. In a nutshell, in a brief manner, I would like to explain it to you before proceeding ahead, that the programmed activities are the ones which are the routine, day-to-day kind of the activities which are being taken up, and the non-programmed activities are the one-time activities, these are the unique activities which are taken up, and the non-programmed activities cause more upon the organization and can pave the way for organization towards the achievement of the goals which the organization has fixed for. So with regard to the non-programmed activity, the first activity which is to be taken up by the leadership, that is with regard to the mission and vision of the organization. What is to be done over the period of time? In which direction we would like the organization to go? If you try to take the example, again the micro and the macro both taking together, if one looks at, one finds it that what was the focus, what was the crux of the government of India after independence. In the first decade after independence, the focal concern of the government was on infrastructure building. So that became a mega policy for the government of India, which was provided by the leadership with regard to infrastructure building, may it be roads, may it be buildings, may it be bridges, may it be dams, and may it be the other kind of the infrastructure in form of civil aviation, in form of electricity generation, transmission, etc., etc. In the second decade, that is in the decade of the 60s, we find that the focal concern again got shifted from the infrastructure building. It came on to grow more food campaign. That is the green revolution came into being, and so on and so forth. Ever since independence, we find it that almost after every decade there is a change which gets into being. So this is how one gets into the mission and vision of an organization at the micro level to be fixed forth, and there is the role which is being played by the leadership. Is the leader taking that particular initiative depending upon the circumstances? Is the leader taking into stock what has happened in the past? Is the leader having the vision before him that what the organization he would like to have, say, after 10 years, after 15 years, and so on and so forth? Because we are not staying, or we are not amidst a static society. We are in a dynamic society, and whatever things happen on one count, it definitely has its implications and effects as well as the counter effects upon the other activities which are being there. So the first activity which is to be taken up by the leadership, that is in the non-programmed activities, that is the mission and the vision. The second activity again is that is with regard to the goals which we set, keeping in view what is our mission, keeping in view what is our vision, what we try to achieve over the given period of time. And again we find it, as we say, that there is lack of unanimity with regard to the applicability of the principles of public administration, and depending upon this lack of universality of the applicability of the principles of public administration, we find that the goals also vary depending upon the organization. I mean, an organization which is committed to an education, say a university, or an organization which is looking after the health sector, say Directorate General of Health Supplies, Health Systems or Services, and so on and so forth, one finds that the goals also vary. But the goals are definitely in consonance with the mission and vision of the organization, and that becomes more core a responsibility of the leadership to get it into place. Then the third thing which comes up over there is that is the resources. Identification of the resources, what is required. Followed by that, how best the resources are to be allocated so that there is optimal utilization of the resources which the organization has before it. And then again it is dependent upon the market approaches which are to be taken into consideration, that the market analysis is to be made, that what is required, how and with whom we are competing, where we have to go, how the other organizations are moving ahead. There has to be a kind of the mix between the two, and it definitely comes more into light or prominence when one now talks of the organizational pluralism. One finds it that, well, there is an interplay between the government organizations and between the private sector organizations, and that is where one finds that the governance as a concept is really very broad, and it subsumes both public administration and the business administration or the private sector administration. So the market analysis again becomes very important so far as the leader is concerned. For that matter, if one talks of the educational institution, now what is going to be or what is being done with regard to the foreign universities, and an attempt being made for the foreign universities to have a place with regard to the spread or dissemination of education in India. How the university system in India should respond to this particular thing which is coming before it, how they have to make a niche for themselves in order to provide the need-based kind of the education to the people of the country. So that depends upon the market analysis. In the similar manner, one looks at that there is the question with regard to upgradation of technology and the infrastructure, which again gets into the non-programmed activities, but which is having its linkage with the programmed activities. You know, whatever is going on, how best we find, depending upon the feedback which we are garnering over the period of time, that we have to get more things into the place with regard to the functioning of an organization. So this is where one finds the role of the leadership so far as the non-programmed activities are concerned. With regard to the programmed activities, again one finds it, yes, of course, it is planning, it is organizing, it is staffing, it is directing, it is coordinating, it is reporting, it is budgeting. That is the seven components of the acronym POST-COB, having been enunciated way back by Luther Gulick. In the similar manner, in the programmed activities, one finds that the team building again occupies a place of prominence. Employee satisfaction is very essential. Employee satisfaction with regard to fulfillment of the needs and the wants and desires and impulses of the employees, which have to be taken care of by the leadership. And the job satisfaction which the employees must get it, because if the employees are dissatisfied on the job quantum, then certainly one finds it that they will not be able to contribute their best towards the functioning of the organization. And if the employees are not contributing to their best for the performance of the activities of the organization cannot and can never achieve its targets in the due amount of the time which the organization has fixed forth itself. All this kind of the scenario gets us to go back onto with regard to the development of the different theories and approaches of the leadership, which we shall be referring to a short while now from.
Professor Sahani, as you now know, has given a very lucid picture of the evolving role of leader. And here I have a question for him. And you must be now knowing that leadership is not an easy task. And the role of the leader has been changing. It was a very, the traditional setup, it was mainly confined to planning, organizing, coordinating and controlling kind of functions. Generally programmed functions that he referred to. And now it is also, along with the program functions, more of non-programmed functions, and the leader is not alone now in the race. He is also interacting in the governance setup with the non-state actors, with the private sector, and it is not just one monopoly of one sector, and the task of leadership is changing because he or she has to, or the collective team of leadership has to interact with the entire scenario around, with all the actors around, with the people, the self-help groups, the NGOs, the voluntary associations, the private sector, and he has to respond to their demands also, as well as the demands of the organization within, which he or she caters to through employee satisfaction, as Dr. Sahni referred to, and team building. These are the program tasks, and he very clearly brought out the non-programmed tasks of leader being mission-driven, goal-driven, and always purpose-oriented. So my question now for Dr. Sahni is that it is a very multifaceted role for a leader these days to perform. So is it really appropriate to say that leaders are just born leaders, or can they be even cultivated into being good leaders? Because normally people feel that, you know, you have to have this, these qualities of listening, the qualities of motivating, the qualities of counseling, the qualities of integrity, quality of honesty. A leader has to have so many good things about himself right from the very beginning. So do we really need a leader who's a born leader with the charisma of his or her own, or can, you know, average people be turned into great leaders through proper training and proper experience and proper grooming within an organizational setup?
Well, Alka has referred on to the multifaceted dimensions of the leader, and in fact the question which he has posed is also multidimensional. So I would like to respond to the question which Alka has raised. That is the first thing which one gets across on the basis of the writings of scholars like Bodan, Goldner, Stogel, etc. Those who have referred to the set of traits amongst the leaders, those who are those traits which are there in the personality structure of the people, and by virtue of these traits the people become the leaders. Stogel has come out with 27 such kind of the traits of the leader, and the important one of these 27 traits he has referred on to, that is intelligence, initiative, supervisory ability, self-assurance, perceived occupational level, social maturity, inner motivation, self-confidence, etc. Now, this group of scholars, they have the opinion that by virtue of these traits, a person becomes a leader. So that is why this theory is being known as the trait theory or the trait approach so far as the leadership is concerned. But then the question comes up is that, well, if a person gets into the position of a leader by virtue of the circumstance circumstances which are around. This is known as the situational theory of the leadership, which has been emphasized upon by scholars like Basil, by Bani, by Sheets, by Tannenbaum, etc., etc. Those who say that leadership is a function of a situation. It does not reside in a single or set of personality traits. So this means that when a situation gets a person into the position of the leader, if the leader is having the kind of the traits which have been referred on to by the enunciators of the trait approach of the leadership, then certainly there is more chance for that leader to be a more successful leader. That is one, that can be one presumption. Another assumption or presumption could be that when a person gets into the position of a leader through the situational factor, then the person tries to adapt himself to the circumstances which are going across and tries to imbibe the skills. It becomes a little more time consuming for an individual to get into that particular seat of it. But when one talks of it and makes a division between the political executive and the permanent executive, that is the organizational leadership and the political leadership, one finds that the people, those who come on, are those who occupy the position of leadership in the organizations, that is from the permanent bureaucracy point of view, then these are the guys, are the people, those who have already been trained, those who have already been groomed, they have already been made to acquire certain skills and the techniques over a period of time. In the similar manner, these are not the only two theories with regard to the leadership, that is the trait approach or theory, or the situational theory or the situational approach. The third approach talks of, that is the group theory, which says that the followers, they depend upon leader and extend support as long as their needs are fulfilled. Now this is conditional, that the followers are extending their support to the leader, but to an extent. What is the extent? The extent is that so long as the followers' needs are being fulfilled through the activities or the acts being undertaken by the leader, they have the support for the leader. But whenever they feel that their activities are not being fulfilled, or their desires or the wants or whatever aspirations they have or expectations they have are not being met with, then they withdraw the support so far as the leadership is concerned. And if one looks at from the practicality point of view, one finds that there are n number of examples which are there in existence which do support this kind of the contention, that the followers keep on extending their support so long as the leadership is able to fulfill their demands and the needs and the aspirations or wants, and the moment they are not being fulfilled, the followers probably do not extend the support to the leader as much as it is required to be given on by them. Another theory which has been given by Jacob Moreno and Helen Jennings, that is the sociometric theory, which suggests that leadership qualities and requirements vary in different groups according to goals, tasks and internal structure of an organization. So this again refers on to that, well, the qualities, the styles of the leadership, it would again be at variance depending upon the goals, depending upon the circumstances, depending upon the internal structure which has been put across so far as an organization is concerned. The general integration theory, which has been coined by Freddie Fiedler, says that leadership is a function of personality and social system in a dynamic interactional situation. Now the moment one talks of the interactional situation, whatever I submitted before, that is the focus of the leadership to be on team building, the focus of the leadership to ensure more participation of the employees and the followers, it gets into being. That is an interactional mode which gets into place for the purpose of achievement of the goals of an organization. So looking at this particular aspect, a very important theory which has been coined by Freddie Fiedler, which is known as the contingency theory of leadership. Alka, I would just like to briefly refer on to this particular theory, which is there on the work having been produced by Freddie Fiedler, that is the theory of leadership effectiveness. It says that leadership is a process of influence wherein the convenience or inconvenience of influence exertion is a function of the favorableness of the group task situation. And the favorability determinants are leader position power, leader member relations and the task structure which is over there. So if this is favorable, then certainly the leader would be able to exert the influence upon the followers and would be able to get the things done. But an important question which gets up out of this particular thing is that, is it dependent on the leader, or will the leader be doing it only, and should leader be able to exert his influence? Yes, leader is required to exert the influence. But to how much, what is the extent of that influence. If there is more kind of an influence, then again one finds it that the things go topsy-turvy. People become dissatisfied. People start feeling suffocating in that kind of an organization where the leader becomes more predominant. But what Freddie Fiedler has talked of, that the favorability determinants include leader-member relations. So that is the underlying assumption over there, that the leader-member relationship, if it is cordial, then there will be the influence exertion would be convenient for the leader to do it. If it is not cordial, it would be inconvenient for the leader to exert the influence. So this theory given by Freddie Fiedler, it is definitely a very well encompassing kind of an approach, wherein he talks of that process of influence exertion, it depends upon the favorability determinants, which determine whether there is possibility for the influence to be exerted or not, which is dependent upon the leader position power, leader member relations, and the task structure which is there in the organization which is over there. Another thing which is related onto it is that is the managerial grid, which was built across by scholars like two scholars, namely Mutton and Blake, in their work entitled Managerial Facades. They have built up the grid which refer on to concern for task and concern for people. Now there are two things which are before us. One is the concern for task, the other is the concern for concern for work. Should a leader be work-oriented or task-oriented, or should a leader be people-oriented or employee-oriented or follower-oriented or follower-centered? Now the grid, which contains 5 components, one component of that is 1, 1. That is low orientation of task and low orientation on relationship. And it has been referred to as impoverished. And the meaning of the word impoverished is that is to make poor, getting rather poorer, or the worst kind of a situation which is there, wherein neither you have the concern for the task nor you have the concern for the people. That is a free rein kind of an approach. Do whatever you want to do. I am not bothered about you. You don't get bothered about me. That kind of an approach. A little higher when one goes upon in the grid, one finds it that is 1, 9. That is low orientation for task and more orientation for the relationship. So less focus on work or task and more focus on the relationship. And this has been referred to as country club. I mean, you come over there, you just chat with each other, gossip around, do whatever you want to do, but certainly not whatever is required by the organization to be done. So that you are not task oriented, but the leader is more relationship oriented. On the other side of the grid, one finds that is 9, 1. 9, 1. 9, 1 is more focus on the task and less focus on the relation. Again, it is something which is not very much required or called for. The uppermost of the grids refers on to that is 9, 9, that is high relation for high orientation for relation and high orientation for task, which is said to be probably the idealist or the ideal kind of a connotation in an organization. And in between all these 4 points, that is 1, 1, 1, 9, 9, 9, 1 and 9, 9, there is 5, 5, which is middle of the road, neither high or low on the task orientation as well as on the relationship orientation. So depending upon that, it would again vary on the circumstances which are prevailing in the organization, wherein one could say that the leader is to adopt a given style. Now which style should the leader adopt? Should the leader be a compromiser? Should the leader be a developer? Should the leader be a benevolent? Should the leader be executive? One refers to the 3-dimensional model which has been coined forth by William J. Redin in the Managing Organizational Change, the work which was produced by William Redin, wherein he talks of the 4 basic styles of the leader, and the 4 basic styles of the leader include relaxed, integrated, separated and dedicated. So given these 4 basic styles, that is relaxed, integrated, separated and dedicated, he has built a quantum which moves on from ineffective to effective leadership. The beauty of the 3-dimensional model given by William Redin is that the orientations are the same, but a leader is effective and the same orientation, the leader is ineffective. Why does it happen? Say, for example, high relation and low task. It is said to be developer, an effective style of a leadership, and it is said to be developer. And the same orientation, that is high relation and low task, it is said to be an ineffective style of leadership and is said to be a missionary. So one is a developer, the other is a missionary. The developer is the effective style, missionary is the ineffective style, that you have high orientation on relationship, low on task. But as per William Redin, it depends upon the situation. If the situation does warrant that you don't have much work, so you are developing people, you are developing more on relationship. So there is no work, so you are low on task and high on relation, so you are developing people. That is the effective style. But if the task is there, right, we have to meet the challenges. For that matter, 2015 is coming across. This by 2015, the 8 Millennium Development Goals having been set up by UN, those are to be met by the countries, and we are lagging behind. So if that is the case and we start building more of the relationship, then certainly if we will be low on task and high on relation, in that kind of a situation, it would be a missionary kind of the zeal or the style of the leadership, which would be ineffective. In the similar manner, another connotation which Redden has given in his three-dimensional model is that is high on task and high on relation, and it is said to be as an executive style of the leadership, which is an effective style of the leadership, because if you want to have more tasks, you have to have more high on relations. If you have to have more high on relations, you have to have more high on tasks. But if the situation is not like that and the person says that, well, task is not much or relations are not being permitted to be in that particular scenario, then certainly it is an ineffective style of leadership and it is being termed as a compromiser. That today the leader is compromising and is giving more benefits to the followers because he wants to take more work from them. So it becomes conditional on the part of the leadership, and the followers do understand it. And such kind of a thing, it does not build an ongoing kind of the process of the commitment of the workforce so far as an organization is concerned. The third, which William Redden has talked of, that is low on task and high on relation. That is low on task and low on relation. That is said to be the bureaucratic style. I mean, there is no task, so there is no relationship, etc. So that is considered to be an effective style, because the situation does warrant it that, well, we are passing through a lean phase. So, well, if the task is less, let us be low on the relationship quantum as well. But it can be ineffective when we say that the person is now keeping low on relation because there is low on task, and and such kind of a leadership style is known to be a deserter style of the leadership. The fourth style which he has talked of is that is high on task and low on relation. That is the benevolent. High on task and low on relations. Benevolent is an effective style of leadership, but high on task, low on relationship, again, if the situation does not warrant it to be so, it is autocrat, and that is an ineffective style. Who is benevolent? A benevolent is the one whose credibility is otherwise established so far as the followers are concerned. And they know that, well, this person has the concern for us. Today the situation is not permitting this individual to be high on relations, but certainly it doesn't mean that, well, this person can be done away with. So depending upon these particular aspects, one finds that there are the situational factors which make a leader to adopt a style which could be effective or which could be ineffective. I would briefly, if Alka permits me, I would like to bring on to for your consideration that there are leadership styles which are to match with the subordinate traits. There are three types of the subordinates in an organization. One are those who are thoroughly well motivated, much committed, much dedicated to the organization, those who have utmost sense of belongingness so far as the organization is concerned. Then there are the type of the people, those who are work shirkers, those who just come to an organization for the sake of getting or drawing their salaries and are not contributing worth whatever they are being paid forth in the organization. The third category, which is in between, that is the average, those who are neither good nor bad. Right? Organizations are always the ones which will be having the excellent performers, which will be having the average performers, and which will be having the worst kind of the people in the organization so far as the organizational functioning is concerned. But no organization can afford to chuck away such kind of the people, those who are poor, or rather poorest so far as the work performance is concerned. You know, it is not true only of the public administration organizations, but also of the private sector organizations, that it becomes very difficult to check out the majority of the people if they are low on the task orientation. So what the leader is supposed to do? For the employees, those who have low maturity means that the employees or the subordinates are unable and unwilling to take responsibility. The leadership style has to be the telling style, whereby the leadership has to, or the leader has to define the roles to the employees and telling them how it is to be done and at what time it is to be done. That is calling the people, interacting with them, mixing up with them and making them understand this is required to be done and this is the way for doing it. That is a kind of a spoon feeding to begin with. So that is for those employees, those who are low on the maturity. Then there are employees, those who are having maturity level from low to moderate. These are the kind of the employees, those who are willing but are unable to do. I mean, the willingness is there, but the capability or the capacity is not there. For such kind of the employees, the leadership style has to be the selling style, which is directive and supportive behavior of the leader which is required. Then one finds in the organization the employees, those who are from moderate to high maturity. Now the employees from moderate to high maturity are the ones, those who lack enough confidence and they do not feel secure in undertaking a particular task. So the style of the leadership for such kind of the employees has to be the participating style, that is more supportive, more non-directive kind of the attitude to be adopted by the leader. The fourth are the kind of the employees, those who are high on the maturity plank. These are the people, those who are capable, those who are willing, those who are confident of performing. For such kind of the employees, the leadership style has to be, or normally is the delegating style, that you delegate the functions to be undertaken by the leader. Now, under these given set of the circumstances, what one finds that at the same amount of time in an organization, the leader is having a telling style for a different set of employees, a selling style for a different set of employees, a participating style for different group, and a delegating style for the different group of the followers or the employees over there. So this requires a thorough understanding on the part of the leader of the functionaries or the subordinates, those who are working in the organization. Of course, it is very, it appears to be very soothing to talk about it. Leadership should be participative, leadership should be involvement oriented, people should be involved and so on. But to what an extent? We say that there should be delegation. Delegation to whom? Can the delegation be done to the people, those who are on the low maturity quantum? No, certainly it cannot be, because authority and responsibility, they consummate. If I delegate the authority to the person lower to me, then certainly it does not absolve me of my responsibility. My responsibility always remains. So it becomes obligatory on my part to develop the people down the lane if I want to delegate the authority to them, so that they are able to take up the task which is being assigned to them. One is not looking at it from the negative point of consideration only, but it definitely is to be looked at from the positive angle or the perspective. So this opens up a kind of the scenario wherein we have to make it rather obligatory, or whatever one word one may like to make use of over here, for the leaders to have proper and thorough understanding of the different set of the people, those who are over there, because leadership is supposed to lead. Whom one is leading, one must know about it. What is the intelligence level of those people? Are they committed? Are they dedicated? If they are not committed and dedicated, and what are the reasons? Maybe the reasons are the ones which are definitely genuine so far as the employees are concerned, and the leadership roles then comes out to be to facilitate the people to acquire those kind of the things which put them on the plank of being onto the moderate to high maturity, or onto the highest maturity level so far as the organization is concerned. So that brings forth that depending upon the situation and the circumstances, it becomes required on the part of the leader to put across the different set of the leadership styles in existence for getting the work done. But the underlying assumption again remains is that work becomes more important. Target is there to be achieved. Target is the one which has been fixed forth. Leaders should not attempt to fix gigantic targets which are difficult and rather impossible to be achieved. It should be the targets which are achievable after making a thorough analysis of whatever strengths I have available with me. So that brings forth the technique which we talk of, that is a SWOT analysis which is to be made. That is the analysis of the strength, analysis of the weakness, analysis of the opportunities, as well as the analysis of the threats which are over there in the organization as being looked upon by the leader, or as the leader does feel would be happening over the given amount of time.
So normally I think leadership is not just very multifaceted issue. It is also a very, very difficult task in itself, because it is not just about power, it is not just about being big. Generally what observers of administration feel is that, being a leader is being all powerful and having all kinds of facilities and advantages, but it is a very, very difficult task. From what Professor Sahni has been telling you, leader has to be different in every situation. Leader has to be discerning, leader has to be decisive. There is no one theory that can be applicable in every situation. So leader has to know what to adopt and what to discard depending upon the circumstances. depending upon the employees, the lot of employees that he or she has, depending upon the market forces, depending upon the external environment, depending upon the people and actors that the organization interacts with, depending upon the time, depending upon the strengths of the organizations, resources of the organizations. So it is very difficult to actually apply all the theories that we've been talking about on leadership in a given situation in an organization. There are lots of impediments also to leadership. I think we will have another discussion on impediments later on, because now we are running out of time and we cannot go into it at this moment. But as a way of conclusion, I think I would first like to thank Dr. Sahani for giving a lot of information on leaders, and he thinks that there is still time to at least talk about some important qualities of leaders. It's how, despite the constraints and despite despite the difficulties of applying the theory into practice, there are certain qualities of leaders which will hold them in good stead if followed properly, even if the situation is contingent, even if the situation is bad, and even if the leader has all the weaknesses to cope with.
Yeah, the first thing which comes into mind is that, well, the leader must have empathy. There should be genuine concern for the subordinates as well as for the people when one talks of it from the public administration standpoint. Because if that is lacking, then certainly one finds that the leader will not be able to build a team or to build the structure of the organization compatible with the functions to be undertaken by the organization. The second thing which is over there is that the leader must have a sense to think about, that is, the mission has to be developed, and accordingly one finds that the goals have to be fixed forth in a manner that the goals could be achieved. No fun fixing up the big targets if we are unable to achieve it. So the targets should be fixed up, and one should have the things going on in a phased manner, that after accomplishment of phase 1 we move on to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, etc., etc., and simultaneously keep on looking at whatever we have been doing in the past and whatever lessons we have learned therefrom, so that those lessons could be incorporated in the future way of the functioning of an organization. The third thing which is over there is that the focus has to be, so far as the leader is concerned, to be more open-minded, open to the ideas of the subordinates. So far as getting feel of an idea, it is not the property of any person who is heading the organization. It could be there even with regard to the people, those who are much lower so far as the hierarchical structure of an organization is concerned, and one would be able to gauge it only or to get sensitized to it only if there is a two-way kind of the communication which is there in existence, because minus that one finds that it is really very difficult. Another thing is that is owning responsibility. That becomes very essential. Leader must own the responsibility first of all, and then only one finds that it will get percolated down to the level, and the people also, those who are there at the various levels in the organization, would be owning responsibility. And unless and until we have responsibility, we cannot have the accountability, and so on. So in the similar manner, there has to be the selfless approach of the leader. Leader must get himself quite well acquainted with the feeling of the others, as well as should also feel about the constraints in which the people in the organization are functioning. So unless the person is aware of the constraints, the person would not be able to get the things duly being done up by the persons, those who are working under a particular leader, or those who are the subordinates so far as the leader in an administrative organization is concerned. So again, looking at whatever Dr. Alka has referred to, that is a multifaceted kind of the concept of the leadership, multi-dimensional aspects which get into force so far as the performance in an organization is concerned. The central position or the pivotal position in an organization is that of the leader. And leader, again in that manner one could say that, well, it is not only considered to be, but yes, it is a fact that leadership is an image of action and power, wherein it is required that the leader should be committed, should be dedicated, should be determined, because what happens? Even in the informal organization, the children, they look towards the parents, that how the parents are behaving and the children behave in the same manner. So is true of the formal organization, that the people at the various levels in the organization, they look at what the leader is functioning, how the leader is behaving. If leader is late all the time, every day, on each day in the year, then certainly it is not expected of the followers to be on time. So it is a very simple kind of an illustration which could be there. So that is the role model. The leader is the role model so far as the organizational employees are concerned, and in the similar manner, that role model, it makes the people to carry out their activities. I pass it on to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think you must be really thinking that it is rather very difficult to be a leader, because you have to have lots of qualities, and you have to understand so many things and implement so many tasks. And I think you must have understood the various theories of leadership, the different traits, the qualities of being a leader, how a leader can steer his or her organization in a fashion that it is able to achieve its goals and missions. And I think I would like to clarify on this point that when we talk about leader, we do not just mean one individual. It also varies. It can also be a collective of individuals in an organization, because a leader is a person or a collective of person who has the decision-making powers, who is mission-driven, who knows what is to be achieved for that organization at the micro level, and also the nation, as Professor Sahni referred to the political executive, what has to be done. The cabinet takes the decision. So cabinet under the leadership of the Prime Minister is actually the decision-making body. So leadership is also a collective of actors. So I think leadership is evolving, and a leader to be successful has to be an honest, integral person, and has to be very, very goal-oriented, and has to be committed and loyal to his employees, and has to take everyone into his fold and achieve the goals of organization. The participative, democratic, integrated leadership is which is more effective and need to be applied. And of course, it varies from situation to situation, and every leadership style would be different from one organization to the other. And on this, I would like to thank Professor Sahni for giving us such a descriptive account of leadership, its evolution, its traits, its theories and approaches. And maybe in some other session, we will also deal with the impediments and difficulties in being a good leader. On this note, I'll just thank you and thank you all.